Okay, in this video we're going to find the slope again. This is part 2, but this time we're asked to find the slope when we have an equation. Alright, this equation is called the slope-intercept form. It is normally written y equals mx plus b. So anything in this form is basically the slope-intercept form. And I've got two examples here. The two things you need to really know is that the b is our y-intercept. It's when our x, our line, if we had a line here, it's where our line crosses the y-axis at that point. This is also when x equals 0. So the y-intercept is the letter B. The number in front of, I want to change that color because that's not saying color. The number in front of x is our slope. Alright? It's always our slope. The slope tells us many things. It tells us if it's negative, if it's a negative number, the line's going down. Okay? If it's a positive number, the line's going up. If the number is greater than 1, so if the slope is greater than 1, it's more steep. So that means it's really steep. If it's less than 1, it's less steep. It's almost like flat. So those are the things about the slope you kind of need to know. All right. So, like I said, so the number in front of x is always the slope. All right. So let's go ahead and, since we know this information, remember we're looking for the number in front of x. So when we say what the slope is, we don't want to say, like in this case, we're looking for the number in front of x. So there's the number in front of x. So my slope is -4. Okay, if we wanted to graph this on a, we could go, since it's negative, that means we're going down. All right, it's greater than 1, so it's going to be pretty steep. Okay, it could be steep going up, steep going down. It doesn't matter. Now, remember, the negative or the sign only represents the direction in which the line's going. It doesn't change the steepness. It's only the number in front of x that tells us how steep it is. All right. So our slope is -4. All right. If we were to graph this in some sort of way, you know, like take a point and graph it, we would have a graph and we would say, okay, we're going to go down 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we're going to go to the right one. So we put our dot there. That's if we started here. So our graph would look something like this if we were doing it. All right, and it would still keep going. It'd go down 1, 2, 3, 4, then over 1. You can see it'd probably still be there. Down 1, 2, 3, 4, over 1, and just keep going. All right, so that's how you find the slope on that equation. So let's look at the other one. The other one, I rearranged it a little bit on you so that way we could try to, because sometimes they will rearrange it. And so you have to put it in the slope-intercept form to find this. Remember, the slope-intercept form is this guy here. It's this guy here, y equals mx plus b. The m and x and b all have to be on the same side. The y is by itself. All right, so in this case here, if you look, it is basically in the y-intercept form. I'm looking for the number in front of x. It's right here, all right? And so my slope here is a -7/2, or -3/5 if you want to call it that way. Again, that means I'm going down 7 units and to the right 2 units, because this is positive and that's negative. That's what the slope is. Then if we did this, we know it's 3.5, so we know it's a negative slope, so it's going down. And we know it's steep because it's greater than 1. All right, the other number that we didn't mention, the 3 and the 2/3, those are the y-intercepts. Remember, that's where it crosses the y-axis. But we're only concerned about the slope in this video. So our slope is always here. Now, if someone asks you to find a slope, the slope is not a -4x. It's only the number that is the slope, not the variable. All right? A lot of kids will say -4x. So now we have something, here's one that we have in standard form. Standard form is when you have ax plus by equals c. And we want to change it into the y equals mx plus b form. So we want to move the things where y is all by itself. So we're going to solve for y. So here we go. I'm going to solve for y. So I want to get y by itself. So I'm going to subtract 2x to both sides. Remember, 2 has a positive in front of it, just like your age. You go around, say you're 14 years old, you're really plus 14, so you really would say you're positive 14. But we just say, since the number's positive, we just say the number. So in this case, 2x is really positive 2x. And so we're getting rid of 2x first. And we're going to subtract it to both sides, 2x. Alright, this becomes a zero pair. What's a zero pair? When you have a plus 2x, when you have the same numbers or variables and they have opposite signs. So plus 2x and a minus 2x, they equal 0. That's why it's called a zero pair. We're going to bring down our 3y, and we're going to bring down our others. Now, a lot of kids try to add and subtract these. You can't subtract these or add these because they're different terms. Terms are like family members. So 5 is a family member. It's just numbers. Where negative 2x is the x to the first power family, and there's negative 2 of those. All right, once we do this, then we have to get y by itself. You can ask yourself, what's the variable? My variable is y. What's being done to y? It's being multiplied by 3. I'm sorry. In an algebra, we always do the opposite. So instead of multiply by 3, we're going to divide both sides by 3. All right, 3 divided by 3 is 1, and 1 times y is y. So we got our y by itself just like we want to. Now, this area here is okay, but we can separate it. And what I mean by separate is the 3 will go with the 2 and go with the 5. So we're just going to separate it. Negative 2/3 x plus 5/3. All right, you see how I did that? The 3 just goes to both of them. All right, which one's my slope? Well, you should know that the number in front of x is my slope. So that's my slope right there, m. Now tell me, is it going up or is it going down? You should have said going down because of the negative right there. Is it steep or less steep? If the slope is less than 1, I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. Let me make sure you understand that. If the number in front of the slope, if the number of the slope is between 0 and 1, let me rephrase that. If the slope is between 0 and 1, so otherwise it's a fraction or decimal. So 0 is less than m, which is less than 1. And that's not 0, it's actually negative 1 because you could have a negative 1 slope. Alright, so if the number is between negative 1 and 1, so it's a decimal or a fraction, it is less steep. That means it's getting close to being flat. The closer it gets to 0, the flatter it is. This is a 0 slope. This could be just barely like a fraction or a decimal, and it's the same thing this way. Alright, so my slope is negative 2/3. What is this guy here? Oop, I erased it by accident. What is 5/3? Well, 5/3 should be my y-intercept. And I'm just going over a little extra. Remember, y-intercept is where it crosses the y-axis, our line. And so that would be like really 1 2/3 here in this case. That would be 1 2/3 where the line's crossing. Alright, let's do the next one. Alright, it's in standard form. I want to get it in y-intercept form, so I can get y by itself. I have a plus x, so I'm going to subtract x to both sides. This becomes a zero pair. Bring down what? See if you can tell me what you bring down. You bring down a negative 3y. Remember the sign in front of the number follows it, so it's a negative 3y. And we can't combine the 4 and the negative x, so we can write it this way if we want to. It doesn't matter. Or we can write it negative x plus 4. Either way is fine. I'm just changing it up on you this time. Alright, so now I'm going to look at my variable. It's being multiplied by negative 3, so I'm going to divide both sides by negative 3. And a negative 3 divided by negative 3 gives me 1, and 1 times y gives me y. And now, remember what I said, this negative 3 gets separated, goes to both of them. So I have a 4 with a negative 3 on it. And notice I put the negative in the middle. It's okay, it could be in the top. We really don't usually put a negative in the denominator. If there is one on there, we just move it to the top or in the middle, which is fine. If you notice, this one has 2 negatives, one on the bottom, one on top, so 2 negatives make a positive. And if you notice, it says it's x over 3. Alright, so let's clarify this real quick. 4/3, okay, plus, now what's the number in front of x? You don't see one, but you know there's a 1 there. So it's going to be 1/3 x. And because of that, that 1/3 is going to be my slope. So my slope in this case is 1/3. It's a positive 1/3, so that means the line's going up. And it's less steep because it's between -1 and 1. Otherwise, it's a fraction or decimal.